Okay, it's one after, and that's usually enough time. Sometimes we get some stragglers. Hi, I think I know all you. I'm Chris Daniel, Faculty PD Manager for the Instructional Design Center in the Office of eCampus Learning. And now I can take a breath and talk about accessibility secrets. Of course, there are no secrets. It's just stuff that maybe some of us know that a few others don't, and vice versa. Please chime in. Let's make this a dialogue. Let's put my face actually on the screen because my camera was pointed at the stars as it usually does. Because I don't want hackers to get too freaked out if they were to get into my camera. So let me just, and again, a dialogue, and I'm not an expert at this. However, I found that as I've gone along through the years, a lot of people that claim a lot of expertise, I would say probably aren't experts either. So these are the things I know that are best practices. There are surely more people, especially those with the lived experience of having challenges, especially audio and visual challenges as it pertains to their own bodies, know a lot more about this stuff than I do. Let me learn from you. If you have things to offer, please just chime in. And if what I'm saying doesn't make sense, please stop me and I'll do my best to explain it. But it's essentially these seven or so areas that if we take our Word documents, and I'm kind of focusing in Word primarily because that's what a lot of people type in. I guess Google Docs is becoming a little more de rigueur, however we say that in the French. But Word is what a lot of people use, and it's got actually the most accessibility tools and opportunities to make good documents for people. I think that we have, in terms of any one tool. So I'm just going to jump into these, but essentially we are going to use Word's document inspector, leverage it to tell us what's wrong with our documents or what we can maybe improve. I'll talk a little bit about style and appearance, how a document is structured. So using the various elements inside of Word to designate a piece of text role in the document, that helps. Use of alt text, perhaps misuse of alt text, use and misuse of tables, how to use hypertext properly, so links, and then how to avoid repeated blank characters, which is basically, that's the whole tip. So first of all, if you open Word, do we have Mac users in the crowd? It may be just a little bit different for the dyed-in-the-wool Mac folks using Office 365. So we can go into any document. I'm just going to pull one up, and I'm actually going to pick on this syllabus that I found from DePaul. I actually think it's pretty good, but I'm going to bring it over on the screen and just show how you can use this. So if we're just looking at the standard a standard document, we don't have typographic marks turned on. To the average person, can you all see this document? Sometimes when I share my screen, it locks it in on one one thing I'm doing.
Yes, I can see it.
Great, wonderful. So this is a syllabus, and it looks pretty fairly well formatted for the untrained, fully able person. And somebody told me a quote one time that I think is very valuable, that all of us are only temporarily sort of fully abled. And that when I heard that, it was 6-7 years ago, I had to think about that for a second. But it's really true. And now as I approach well into middle age, my eyes are starting to go with looking at things up close, and some of these issues are starting to creep up a little bit. And so it's given me a different sensitivity. But anyway, that's a complete aside, and I tend to get sidetracked and do that. If you go to File, if you then go to Info, and then you hover over this Inspect Document, Check for Issues button, and click that, you'll get 3 options. So there's one kind of inspect document, there's a compatibility check, not worried about those. I'm going to go to check for accessibility. Now this is not the panoply of things that could be fixable within your document, but it's going to give you a good idea in terms of where to get started. So for example, in this table, it's going to say check the reading order. If somebody just posts a blank haphazard table with no information in it, it's going to often throw that error. So there are a number of these errors, and I don't want to get too far into the weeds with these because I'm going to explain how to manually approach some of these as we go along. But if you look at these various items that come up in these lists and you fix them according to how Word prescribes it, you will automatically elevate the accessibility of your document. When I'm talking about accessibility, sort of a broad approach to accessibility for those with visual impairments primarily, but also as it relates to screen readers. So a screen reader approaches a document in sort of a unique way, sort of a different way. And fixing these things will make the screen reader read it better. That's essentially what we're talking about through most of this. So if we were to go to table, you could hit the drop down button here and it would tell you what you needed to do in terms of table styles. Now, the reading order in tables is a little weird because I don't get that unless I just make a blank table and don't really put much data in it. So if this were me, I would recreate my table and go along and put data in it as I went along and designated which of these columns was a header. And you can do that by right clicking and going to table properties and then going to row, and then you want to repeat the header row across the top of each page. And when you do that, so if this table were to span multiple pages, this header will, and I'm not sure if we indicated there's a header in this one or not. I didn't make this one, so I usually do that in the beginning. If you indicate that you have a header, then that helps the readability part of it quite a bit because the screen reader will recognize that row as being a header row. And I'm missing that. I think I need to highlight this better.
Chris, can I mention something while you're
Please.
doing this? Just that the example you're giving right now is a good example of why you need to do this stuff from the beginning. Because it's a lot harder to go back and fix it later than it is to create it in an accessible way from the beginning.
You got it. And that is 100% my point, is that it's hard to fix somebody else's stuff, especially if it's based on old Word documents. So prior to about 2016, we did not have the .docx extension, and it was an older technology, and the document was not as readable behind the scenes. So the markup language that comprises these Word documents was not as screen reader friendly, was not as extensible or usable by other programs. So this could be part of the problem that we're having. I appreciate you pointing that out. And with that, I'll skip to the next thing because I like to make my own tables. And this is a really hard to read table anyway, because you've got different line thicknesses, and there's a lot of visual stuff that wouldn't jive. But for example, if I click here, faculty have, Word is suggesting that the contrast between the white page, the italics of this line, and the red font color may be difficult for some folks to see. I bet if I were to print that out, it would be harder for me to see, or if I had it, if I didn't have it blown up, it would be harder probably for my eyes to even see, especially in low light. So in any event, the point I'm trying to drive home here is if you open up this inspector, the odds of you getting good information that you can use to improve the accessibility of your documents is going to go way up. Thanks for the tip there, Kelly, and the perspective.
Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt. You froze for me for just enough time for you to open that accessibility thing and for me not to see how you did that.
Uh-oh.
Just tell me, I'm sorry.
No, let's fix it.
Tell me how you opened, because I have Word opened.
Yeah.
Tell me how you get the little accessibility thing.
Get File, upper left corner of the screen.
Yes.
Then to Info.
Okay.
There's a more elegant way to do it, but this is the easier way to do it for me.
Okay.
And then under Check for Issues, check Accessibility.
Okay.
And that should bring up a right pane on the right side of the screen.
Well, I am the odd one and I have a Mac, and that's why I think I'm not seeing, I don't have a file. I have a file at the top, but I don't have an info. I'll look it up. Don't you keep going. I'll look it up. It's no problem.
Okay.
No problem.
moving right along, and I'm sorry about, and also it depends on the version of Mac. That's not a good relationship Apple has with Microsoft or vice versa. So let's talk about style and appearance. So here are some things that, and I don't necessarily need to demonstrate all these, but I will demonstrate a couple of them. Color to convey meaning is fraught. We have folks with different types of color blindness, and also we can't be assured that our coloring choice will be readable by a screen reader. So those are the two big reasons you want to try to avoid color when you and using it for emphasis in a document. We have to be careful with contrast. What am I talking about with contrast? There's a percentage, and because I'm not an expert, I don't have this memorized, but the lighter the color of the text or the darker the background, that relationship can cause some folks sets of eyes to not be able to distinguish what the text is on the screen. So you got to be careful with that contrast, and they measure it in terms of percentages. But a baby blue on a white background is not as readable as dark black or black or brown on that same background. So you want to be careful using contrast. Overusing bold for emphasis is against best practices. Now, I think it's fine to use bold for one word or maybe a phrase. There's also a style, and we'll talk about styles in a little more depth. And if you go into a default Word document, bring this over, and notice that you have styles that are already set up. It is perfectly acceptable, and in fact, if you're not going to invest a lot of time in doing anything else, just using these styles as prescribed go a long way towards creating an accessible Word document. And one of the styles that we have is emphasis. And so that emphasis category inside of Word will allow the screen reader to pick up on the fact that one has emphasized a particular word or phrase. So you just type that word or phrase out, highlight it, and then click emphasis. So what if you don't like the fact that it's italicized in a certain way and that it has a certain font? It's really easy to change that. So I guess I'm skipping ahead now. So if you want to change how this is defined in terms of the font face, the font size, and those sorts of things, you can right click on that particular style and you can click modify. And that's what I would do. I wouldn't go making new styles. I would just use the title, heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4, and define those as you want and set them up in your document first. Also, if you know you're going to use that throughout every document that you create, you can create a Word document template, a .tx, and I can show you how to do that later. It's not very many steps, but it's a little more involved than what I like to show just this presentation. So notice here that if we want to modify the emphasis style, then we could rename it, but we could also say that, well, instead of just being italicized, we want it to be Calibri light, or we want it to be Times New Roman. We can even search. So just search for Times New Roman. We want it to be a 12-point font, and we don't care about what color necessarily, just whatever the default color of the document is, or you could define the color. Again, remember, color for emphasis is fraught. And then, but it's italicized. You may want to say that it's bold instead and not italic. Then you hit OK. Anything that has that designation. So now if we go down here, well, wait a minute, I'm in emphasis mode now. If I go back to normal, if I make a change here and those are highlighted as emphasis styles, then it changes every single element in that document. So if you've already got them marked, then you can go right ahead and make your change there, and it changes it in the document. And so we would do the same thing for headings. So if we did, preamble, section 1, and we go to title, label that the title, or style it the title. Style this heading 1, style this heading 1 as well, style this heading 2. It does something neat. Let me come in here in part A and make this heading 2. If I go to do a find and then click headings here, it already gives me an outline of my document. So if you go into a document and see these rich outlines, let me find one where that's already happening. I think it's here. I actually think this document does a pretty good job of it. So notice that we already have in this syllabus that I downloaded, a really good outline of the document. All the headings are in place, and that makes it accessible because those screen readers pause at the right times and give the appropriate auditory emphasis if those headings are set up correctly. But it's actually one of the first things that document inspector will key in on. If you don't have headings in your document, it will go ahead and warn you. But it's so much easier if you get those set up in advance. Best practices also suggest that overuse of italics can be fraught because it's a little bit harder to read, especially if you have a whole paragraph italicized. And I think a lot of people find that to be true too. It's, people without, accessibility needs, like when it all kinds of runs together, at least for me. I'm not sure if you all have had similar experiences. Underlining is generally bad because people mistake it for hyperlinking in documents. So, if you underline a whole lot, it makes it harder to differentiate what is, what's a link and what isn't. And that's for people who are not necessarily using a screen reader. A screen reader can suss that out, but if you're looking and, you don't require a screen reader, but at the same time, you're reading it and you can't tell what's a link from what isn't, it can slow you down a little bit. Same thing with strike throughs, similar kind of thing, difficult to read. Drop caps for folks with reading difficulties and dyslexia, I'm told can have trouble with use of drop cap. Although it's only one time, I'm not sure exactly why, what all the reasons might be. Maybe Kelly or somebody has some insight. Word art and text effects. I think we've kind of gone out of using a lot of word art. It used to be people used word art like it was going out of style because it was kind of like we stopped using a lot of animations and PowerPoints. But word art is this feature where if you come into a document and you go to insert, then you have word art here, and you can make the text do have different looks. Like if you want this mirrored, I think that's terrible and very difficult to read myself. But if you were to insert that in your document, you would want to click it and then right click and go to alt text and add alt text there for that. And in fact, any graphic element that you insert into a document, you would want to highlight it, right click and go to alt text, and then use the suggestions there for filling out alt text. Or if it's decorative, first of all, I'd say if it's decorative, question the need for it. Maybe you really feel like you do need it, but maybe you don't. If you mark a graphic element as decorative, a screen reader just passes right over it. It just sort of ignores it. If you're going to insert graphic elements, I'm sort of going all over the place here, I guess. Anything in line is preferable to a floating element. And what do I mean by that? In line would be if you're typing text and you can run up against this graphic, then it's going to be better because the screen readers will parse it out. Notice how this element is just sort of floating around. I can put it anywhere. That is going to make the screen reader handle, depending on the screen reader, it will handle that differently from product to product. And it may completely pass it up. So that if you have something, a very important graphic that needs to be explained, where the students benefit from, or your reader benefits from the explanation, then that's important to know. And so you can also wrap the text and indicate that it will be in line with the text. Does that make sense? So I've got this element, I double clicked it, I went into shape format here. So this is a menu that does not come up until you select a graphic element, and this works similar for pictures or line art or whatever. So you click this or double click it, and then under shape format, you go to wrap text and indicate you want this in line with your text. Now that's not a guarantee it's going to be perfect, but when you get it in line with the text, there's a better chance that the screen reader will observe that and indicate that through its reading process. We have some chat elements here. Who's okay? Wonderful. Are you still with me, Cindy?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I bounced around more than I thought I should have, but the thing is, all these things sort of run in together. So I was talking about floating elements. People, and I used to do this all the time. People like to make text boxes, so they'll insert and then they'll go to text box. If I can find it myself, I've only done this a million times. So we're going to do shape and then text box here. So I went to insert, shapes, text boxes. Incidentally, you could right click this and add to gallery to quick access toolbar. Sorry, this is yet another aside, but it's very useful. Any tool that you use more than 2 or 3 times a week, you could throw it up on this little area here. That's called the quick access toolbar. And so when I right click any of these tools, it works like that, and add it there, then I can have my text box tool added to my gallery. And if you librarians knew that, I'm just gonna let you teach the rest of this class. I bet y'all did.
I did not.
Oh, yay. All right.
Me
So that's
either. That is really helpful.
Very helpful.
well, let me show you something really weird too. You got you've probably seen part of this, but if you hit Alt here, notice that you get these letters and numbers that come up. Now insert text box is Alt and then let off of Alt and 6. So if you want to use that, but for whatever reason you can't use your mouse, this is also a really good accessibility feature for folks that have trouble clicking. Hit Alt, hit 6, and now we are ready to. Well, why didn't it go ahead and do that? I think I had to hit Enter. Sorry, Alt 6, Enter, and now it inserted a text box right there. And it works for any of those tools. So you hit Alt, hit the other keys that are indicated on the pop-ups, and then hit Enter, and then it does that. But using this floating text box is bad for accessibility. A lot of screen readers don't know how to parse that. They don't know what the position in the screen is. If you must use it, I think you can double click and then wrap text here and then make it in line. Of course, that can make your document look goofy, but question the need for that. But I used to, in training documents, I used to use that all the time because I wanted exact placement of my element on the page. Bad for screen readers, though.
I have a question, Chris, related to that. So what do you do about people that want to create documents? Would they have like special call out boxes? Like maybe they have like a separate, like, it sounds similar to like they're inserting these text boxes, but what they do is they sometimes like use tables to force a certain box to appear, and then they'll treat it like text. How do you, is creating a text box and forcing it to be in line, is that a better way to do like those call out boxes within documents? Or like what's the best way to do it when they specifically want to call out a specific section of text?
So what I think you mean is like in a newspaper when they have there's sidebar elements that provide additional or complementary or emphasis
like
information.
Yeah.
Or even in a textbook, like if you think you might have a little box that says questions for review, or you know what I mean, like at the end of the chapter, stuff like that.
You know what I might do, and this the problem is, I think this is sort of not a paradox, but as we get fancier in digital documents, the accessibility tends to go down. And so one thing you could do, you could hyperlink within that same document to a section that were more accessible. You could do it's not a table box. I don't know the term. Let me show you what I'm talking about though. So if this is the stuff we wanted to emphasize, I need some lorem ipsum fake Latin text here. Every time I do one of these, I think, man, I should have done this or that. So you could come up here, and so this is selected. You could come to this borders button here and do all borders. And I don't think that messes with accessibility.
Okay.
we could test it by using the immersive reader. So if we went to review and then where is the immersive reader here? Yeah. So this is the other tip. Like it all runs in together. I was going to show you this at another point. But when you have this Word document done and it's done correctly, you can go to immersive reader and then you can have it change the way this document's displayed in a lot of different ways. You can draw out the letters in a word. Some folks with dyslexia find that that's better. You can have it read line by line along with, with self-pacing. But let's see what the screen reader says here. Let's read aloud and let me go over here. Let's start here. I don't know if you all will be able to hear this or not. Hold on, read aloud now, hit play. Wait a minute. It's not coming up for me even. Hello.
Chris, is it muted?
Well,
No, it's not. Sorry, it was small on my screen, but I saw the speaker and thought maybe it was muted. Sorry.
let me see if I have system. Anyway, even if I can't read it, this is how you would check. You would just go into the immersive reader, which is found under view, immersive reader. Oh, let me show you the other things you can do. You can control line spacing in various ways. You can have line focus, so one line at a time. And that's completely self-paced. You can change the page color. Some folks, especially if there is somebody who has authored this document has made a color that, in a contrast ratio that's not good for that reader, he or she can go ahead and make that change to their, on their own and even define more colors. That would be, any of these colors would, I don't know, set me off. But, and then you can also change how so it can read by syllable. So and the online version of this is even better. So let me go to Office 365 and find like a non-objectionable document. I've got all kinds of weird documents up here that are like, you don't want to read that. So I'm going to Office 365 through myfiles.eku.edu, and it's trying to get me in. You will have to log in with your email username and password, and also perhaps enter in your two-factor information. But that's your online Microsoft OneDrive. We have lots of people using G Drive. We almost have like a house divided here. We have G Drive enthusiasts and we have OneDrive enthusiasts, and sometimes never the two shall meet. And that's, I don't know if we're ever going to, there'd be a mutiny on somebody's hands if we decided to shutter one versus the other. Let me go here and see if I can find some sort of decent document. Oh, here's one. This is a form letter that I send. Somebody just chatted. Yeah, I kind of wish they would pick one or the other too, Laura, because most of us we're flexible. But let me show you the inline reader here. So if I go to view and then go to immersive reader, I think it's even better on the web. So you share your documents with your students, for example. If we're talking about students, they can get into this, and a lot don't even know that it exists. But let me just show it. So here's a document, and this looks a lot better than the Word version. And then let's see if I can, and you can already go ahead and hit play. So let's see if it will read it to us. It's got something to do with us being on Zoom, I guess. But it reads it very well. The natural language voice is very, very good. And so it's a triumph for Microsoft in times when we were maybe not so complimentary of the company. But Team G Drive, here we go. The controversy has started. Not really. It's a good time to have digital. Now, my concern is that both are going to get hacked. Like Amazon Web Services is going to get attacked, and we'll have nothing. So now I'm backing up everything to physical drive space because I'm a paranoid, I'm not quite a tinfoil hat guy, but I could get there real easy when it comes to my documents. So text boxes, remember, floating stuff, graphic stuff, question the need if it's decorative. You've got free choice, so exercise your free choice. But if you are going to add stuff in, then make sure the alt tags are there. And I'm not a real good Kelly, maybe you or Cindy have good resources for how to write alt text. To me, I think shorter is typically better, except in cases where we're talking about tables and we need to maybe explain relationships between rows and columns. But there again, I would
It just
question.
needs to be the right length to add the context that the reader's going to need. That's basically it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I just typically, two students, male and female, smiling at a textbook, something like that. But again, stuff like that's decorative. So in my own documents for my classes, I tend to pull that stuff out. So I already talked about a lot of these structural elements like titles, headings, font styles. Beware of the use of acronyms. You don't need me to tell you that, many of us don't know acronyms, even if we can read them what they are. It's good to define those and then limit their use as much as possible, because a screen reader is going to read like, FICO is FICO or something, your FICO score, or, pick an acronym and just read it as if you didn't know what it was. It probably would come out very weird. Usually hit it using a period between letters will make the screen reader behave better. So F period, I period, C period, O period. Typically that will get you what you want, but be careful. And also, actually doing that may violate certain style guides, if I'm not mistaken. So we're in a messy world. Just do the best you can. And I think that's what a lot of these accessibility, some are truly experts, some are so-called, they get real nitpicky about things. To me, let's all just try to do the best job we can, give people, the most straightforward text that we can. And that's going to be a really great thing for most people. So also anything in headers and footers can be problematic because sometimes screen readers don't read headers and footers. So be careful. Or if you have lots of notation in headers and footers, it could actually read it. And it just makes it confusing for the student, and also takes the screen reader a lot longer to do its job. Also I don't know how we get around math equations. I'm not sure about that. I think that's a problem. It's a problem area that needs to be addressed. And probably one of those math publishers has figured that out. One of the technology companies that deal with equations, perhaps Wolfram Alpha does, or another. We already talked about alt text. First of all, if it's decorative, maybe leave it alone. Also, you want to wrap. You want to be able to put your element in line with the text whenever possible. Let the text wrap around it. Make sure that it's in line. Don't let it float over top or behind the text that you have in the document. Long descriptions typically we want to avoid if we can, and be careful with watermarks and backgrounds. A lot of times those things aren't necessary anyway. I think you could, we're not dealing in top secret documents. We don't need to have a 4 eyes only watermark on something. Maybe it's important, but I just label stuff draft and send it out and apologize if people think that it wasn't a draft. You think I do professional work around here? I don't know. So also shapes and word art, same kind of thing. Same thing for you do for a shape as you would word art. Let me show that. Let me show where you get at alt text in a table in Word, and also how you repeat headers and what the implications of that are. So if I go back into Word, let me find one of my documents with a big goofy long table. That's not it. Maybe I can get there with here. Let me start a new document and insert a table. And let's do like insert table. Let's do like 500 rows. Is that good enough? Great. And that's going to span many pages. And we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4. And I will make sure that there is a header row is checked, right? I'm going to click so that I have my little table symbol in the upper left corner of that first of the upper left corner of the table. And then I'm going to right click. There we go. And I'm going to go to table properties. There are other ways to get at that. That's how I do it. Alt text is the last tab here. This is where you would title the table and give it some sort of a description as to its purpose. So you want to make sure you do that. Also, when we're dealing with rows, you want to repeat as header row at the top of each page. That's an accessibility must do if you have to have a spanning table. It's a must do because it will, not only is it nice to do, but when I say it's a must do, it will allow the screen reader to have access to that column header at the beginning of every table. It's also not a bad idea, for not, if we're not thinking about accessibility. So when we do that, and I scroll to the next page, I should see, why don't I see that? Oh dear. That's supposed to work. I do have a header row. Let me uncheck banded rows. That's supposed to come along, folks. I don't know why it's not doing it. Maybe if I
Do
make
you have to pick one of the tables that's up there? Like one of the styles?
my hypothesis is that I use numbers and that may have made it unhappy. I don't know. Well, I'll try anything once. Let's see. Yeah. And I went to, maybe I didn't hit OK. And if I go table properties and I go to rows. Okay, I thought I checked it. We can rewind the footage. There. Oh, stupid me. Half the time it works every time, right? So if you do those two things, then you'll have a more accessible table. However, if we're not, we see a lot of sort of misuse of tables. I mean, with good intentions. I mean, we're trying to make it nice on the page and have nice formatting, but really it's for data. Tables should be for data typically. And I may go into Excel. Like if I'm going to span like pages and pages and pages, my preference would be Excel anyway. So with hypertext, what we don't want to do is in every document have a big long URL every time. Why? Because screen readers will read this out, http:// and if it can't discern words within there, it will spell those out, or it will say really goofy alien types of words that nobody can understand except the aliens. So instead, we should embed these links into the plain text of our document, making that text hypertext. That's why it was called hypertext, because you could click on it and it would do something. And it was more than just text. I think that's what Tim Berners-Lee, who developed the World Wide Web, said. Let me go into a document, and the way we get there is pretty straightforward. We just highlight the text that we want. If we've already copied the link from somewhere, sometimes Word is smart about that. So here's the Zoom link. So it's seen the last several files and links that I have have copied into my what's that place where everything goes? The clipboard, the magical memory space. This is middle age, folks. Don't do what I'm doing and get older. But anyway, so when you copy a link into the clipboard, it gets remembered. And then all you'd have to do is just highlight the text, click link, and then click the link you want, and it inserts it. If it's a link that you need to type in, just click the down arrow just below link. Oh, well, I'm sorry, click the button above it, and then type your web address. This helps regular folks too, because who wants to read a big ugly URL? Nobody does. And screen readers are adept at parsing that out. They will tell the listener that this is hypertext, and they have the ability to open that in another program if they want. Now, bonus points if the site you refer them to or the link you refer them to is also accessible. Be cognizant of that too. And there are web checkers way beyond the scope of what I'm talking about today.
Can I mention one other thing about this before you leave?
Please do.
The other best practice with this is not to put click here, and this is mainly for the web, but not to put click here and highlight that, because then you've got a bunch of click here's that a
Yes,
screen reader can't distinguish.
that's right. And yeah, you don't know one from another. It's better to actually make something hypertext that is in itself a description, or at least a better orientation to what it is that person's clicking on. Thank you, Kelly. Yeah, I forgot about click here because that's one thing I've stopped doing after all this time. Repeated blank spaces. If we have many staff and faculty on this campus that don't know how to use decimal tabs in a document, and therefore what they will do is either hit periods, which you're not seeing that here, and then type their text, or they will just hit a succession of spaces to get where they want the other word or element on the screen to be. Setting up decimal tabs beyond the scope of this, but I'm glad to show you how we used to fix these documents all the time. The problem with these spaces is that depending on the font face, depending on the font size, a space is not the same amount of space depending on what we're dealing with here. So it may be, you can't get perfect formatting if you don't use tabbing, essentially. So learn to use tabbing, and that makes things more accessible friendly, because many screen readers will read the blank space, or it will ignore it, or it'll treat the text inside that line in strange ways. So don't do that. Use tabbing. Get some help with the decimal tab stuff, and it's a lot easier, like Kelly said, to set that up. If you set that up initially in your document, it's easier to deal with. So if you know you're going to do some decimal tabbing, then set up your decimal tabs with a carriage return, and then the tabbing works great, and then you can get out of that if you need. If you want to see that, I'll stop the recording and show you all later. Actually, we're almost done. What questions, things to share do you have, observations?
Can you clarify what you meant? I'm hard of hearing, so I'm not sure if I heard you correctly. Decimal tabbing, what you were just talking about earlier. I wasn't sure if I caught that.
Sure. Okay. So let me go back and share the screen here. What many people will do, if I want an inch between this word Mentimeter and Google Forms, what a lot of people do is this. And so what that does is it creates space, sure, but this space is going to be different. So let me highlight over this. We're at 11-point Calibri. Let me change that to 16-point. Do you see how that's variable? And so if something strange happens in the document, there are lots of things that can happen that will cause a shift to occur. And so well, never is a long time, but it's very hard to get that positioning right. Meanwhile, if you don't do that, by default, you've got tabs set up at every ½ inch. So now if I hit tab, that is going to be the same amount of space. I mean, you can squash that if you have words that are much larger. Those are going to be consistent amounts of space because they're defined as such up here in your whatever they call that, the ruler. And you could say, all right, I don't want any tabs. When I hit a tab, I want it to go over to the 5-inch mark. Well, you do that by double clicking here and telling it where you do it. Yeah, I think now. Yeah, so I double clicked there, and I essentially made a little left tab marker there so that the tab appears to the left of the text. And now at 5 inches, one tab is where it's going. And now if I hit enter, that tab marcation will stay until I get rid of it below. So if I type another word, notice that the word 2 is smaller than the word Mentimeter, but yet the tab is going to the same place. And you could set that up for decimal tabbing too. So if you want, you just have to, there's a special place you go into the menu and you say decimal tabs at the 5-inch mark to the left of the word. It's called the left decimal, and you could set it up like that. If we want to go back, so if after we do it here, I want that to go away. I just drag that out. Now we're back to tabs every half inch. Decimal tab. Yes, thank you. Yeah, and you get there by, I think, where is it? Right click. You don't do that. Oh goodness, I think it's under paragraph, maybe paragraph. I forget. Under pressure, I can't find it. When I'm just here by myself, I can go right to it. But that's how that works. Don't use period. Like a lot of people, instead of decimals, they'll just hit periods, and you don't do that. I mean, you can do that. Any other questions, things to offer? Librarians always have good perspectives because you see every discipline, you see every student, you see awesome students, you see students that will be awesome one day, but maybe presently are not. That was me.
This was really helpful. A lot of the little things, especially within Word, I didn't know about, and I do find myself rarely using Word and almost always using Google Docs. So I'm sure some of these features are probably present there as well. But maybe you have some recommendations for using Google Docs.
Yeah, sure. It's the same, almost the same set of tools and issues. So there are headers. Let me share screen again. Let's see. Can I go into Google Docs? So if we go back to G Drive, new document, you have these predefined headings. Please use them. And if you do that, you're with Google Docs, because it's more, somebody decided a long time ago that Word should be like this pagination tool. It also does like you can also make really terrible, awful web pages with it. You can do, they wanted it to be like everything. I think that was in the Aldus PageMaker day, like when we used to all do desktop publishing. Like everybody's going to make a newsletter, like before everybody's going to make a web page, or before everybody's going to do a blog or a vlog. We had this, everybody's going to do a newsletter, and library had one, and IT had one, and lots of people did their own newsletters, and Word tried to be way too much. And so I think one of the strengths and why I'm using it more is that it's much more basic, and that's usually a good thing. So there are less problems to get into typically. So if you just type hyperlink your text, and what's cool is, if I want to hyperlink a document and I go to the link button, like not only can I put in web addresses, but I can link to other Google Docs that I have. And what's really cool is if I do that and I highlight over it, or if a student, well, maybe it's click, it will show a preview of that document inside the window. And it also gives whether or not you can see it. It gives permission attributes too. And I've had a couple students, I think because of this, say, I can't open this up, help. And it's because they're using their other Gmail account to open it, where I have it restricted to everybody at EKU. So it's really cool. So I think that if you just do those two things, Cindy, and remember, there's a Zotero plugin too for it. I bet you knew that.
Yeah.
So yeah, so there are less problems. And it will give you an outline just the same. So if you have heading 1, you go for outline, you generate your outline over here as well. Other than that, there aren't any major issues with, and the cool thing is if somebody, I want to show y'all one more thing before we go. The cool thing is you can get different exports of this. So if you need to download as docx or PDF or plain text, you have some extensibility features here that can help some folks. Let me show you what the good result is if you upload these things, a good accessible document to Blackboard could be. So I'm going to log in here. Hopefully I wasn't planning on doing this, so I hope that I find a good document. So if I go into, maybe I've got something here. No. There is a accessibility tool in Blackboard called Ally, Blackboard Ally. I know I've got them in here. Ally allows students to extend your good accessible documents in so many different ways. And let me just try to find something decent. First of all, behind the scenes, it gives you, when we look at various documents that we've uploaded, it will give you an accessibility rating. There's a bad one. Typically, PDFs we find from other sources that we cannot manipulate ourselves are going to have the worst ones because they don't have the nice headings. Forget about optical scans. That's like taking a picture of something. We don't do that. I don't even want to bring that up, but we don't talk about Bruno or optical scan PDFs because they're nothing. It's a picture. But assuming that we find one that's and these can be relatively accessible. If you click this, it will tell you as an instructor what you can do to fix that so that the rating is higher. Now, it can't help you fix it like Word can, but you can do what it says to do. It will give you tutorials on how to do it. You can re-upload your document and then get a higher score. So that in of itself is a very useful tool if we'll use it. And once upon a time, we looked at these and we're like, well, we didn't want to take the time. And there were a few instructors that were using these documents, not a lot of people. So we didn't fix some of these. But here's what you get if it's pretty good. If you hit this alternative formats button and students have access to this, they can see this. It will allow them to download it as the original document, an HTML-based document that's very plain Paul, an EPUB document for use on a reading device, electronic braille, which I want to see electronic braille, but I'm told there's a device it's a tactile device. You put that into the electronic braille device, and they can read it, using their fingers. MP3 version of it. Now, this is not Roy Dotrice, reading Hamlet or anything, but it's a decent MP3 of it, and we have lots of students that they identify fully able-bodied, but they like putting that stuff in their MP3 not MP3 players. We don't even have those anymore. Their phones and listening to that when they're in the car. Lots of my nursing students I used to help like that, and then other types of readers. So it's doing it right this one way extends it about 7 or 8 different ways, which can be very powerful for the person who needs it. So please experiment with that. And that works the same way in Ultra, which is it's Blackboard's new LMS as it does original. That's the best thing they've done the last 5 or 10 years, I think. It was a real good innovation. Thanks for your comments. Who has any more?
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you all so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Thanks for your interest. Tell me what I forgot sometime, and we'll make this presentation better. I always like to do them kind of informally and off the cuff, so I hope that's not too distracting for too many people. Thank you all so much for your time and attention. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, thank you.